It is exciting. If you didn't know that it is the most popular sport in the world, it is by far. I like to liken it to the metric system. The U.S. has our own way of measuring, but everybody else does it one way. So everybody else does football. We do soccer. So we have with us Coach Michael Thomas. He's going to talk to us a bit today about USD Soccer, but I wanted to point out, at least according to the bio, Michael, correct me if I get any of these wrong, and then we'll correct USD for it. Named head coach of the women's soccer program in December of 17, so started 4th season this year. As a team record, they are 26, 23, and 5. I'm assuming that doesn't include this season yet. But at home in the first 3 seasons under Michael's tenure, they are 16, 9, and 1, which is an outstanding at-home record. The last season, if we have it right as well, even with the goofy modified season, you're able to lead the team to a Summit League tournament for just the second time that we've been part of the Summit League. So even in the crazy year, we're able to have some successes in women's soccer. And I'd continue on, but as I go down, it's a lot of accolades, so I should just really leave it for him for his presentation. There's a number of all-academic team members. There's a number of honors in general for the team players over the last few years, all Summit League honors. It sounds like quite a talented group of young women that you coach. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to our presenter today, Coach Michael Thomas.
The word presenter might be going a little too far, and as he says all those nice things about me and says that I'm leading the team to some successes, let me be clear that the team has all the successes. I learned a long time ago not to take credit for the wins, because if you take credit for the wins, then somebody wants to come in and blame you for the losses. And so I try to give all the credit to the women, and they're the ones out on the field kicking the little ball around the extremely big field anyway. I wanted to thank you guys for inviting me. I get to be here in person this year. I met with a group of you last year virtually, and it's really fun to see what the real deal looks like. I wanted to catch up on the women's soccer team, that we do have a good group of women. Right now we are 4-1-2. Which is the first ranking per se comes out next week, and we expect it to be the highest national ranking in the history of the program at this point. But what I really want to talk about with the team, and I think this fits in with the values of the organization, are some of the things that we're doing off the field. The team has just an awesome GPA. We've got really good students in the classroom. And one of the things I'm proudest of is we have really good students doing the difficult majors. That we've got kids doing pre-med that are going to be doctors. We've got kids doing pre-law that are going to be lawyers. I've got kids that have graduated with math degrees already that are still playing on the team. One of the interesting things about this year is a bunch of the players were given an extra year of eligibility because of COVID. So I've got 4 players playing on the team that are actually already college graduates, and one of which will graduate from USD for the second time in December with a master's degree. So it's an impressive group of young women. And then, I'm not going to lie, sometimes they drive me crazy. Sometimes they keep me up at night. But when they need to do something, and when we ask them to do something, there's always somebody on the team that's going to step up and do it. And I'm going to give you an example, and I'm just going to tell a story of my last week having the privilege to lead the University of South Dakota soccer team. That Special Olympics reached out to me about a week ago. And one of the things that you guys have to know is I love Special Olympics. We had the privilege, and it's a bit of a dubious privilege, to lead the Special Olympics on campus 2 years ago. And I had never been heavily involved in Special Olympics before that. And it was one of the worst logistical experiences of my life. It was a disaster. It was a nightmare. But it was also just one of the most beneficial things I've ever done in my life. I claim I came out of that with 15 new best friends. Soccer was on Friday and the track was on Saturday, and I had plans for my Saturday, and I ended up canceling all those plans and watching track all day, because once they compete in soccer and they look at you and they say, hey, you're coming tomorrow, right? How do you say no to that? So the women in my team are pretty busy right now. We're in season. We've been on the road for 3 of the last 4 weekends. They've got full class loads, as I said, in rigorous majors. Their off day was on Monday, and they had to come in and do educational meetings on some of the new name, image, and likeness rules that the NCAA put in. So they have a lot going on. So I wasn't quite sure what the response was going to be when I came and said, hey, a week from Wednesday, so a week from today, at 6 p.m., and we practice until 5:30, Special Olympics is doing soccer intramurals right now. And we're going to, I'm looking for a group, and we're trying to figure out the NCAA rules. We don't know whether we're going to go kick the ball around with them or just go and cheer for them yet, because law and order every time, that's us. But every time I start to doubt whether they're going to be able to add another thing in, I've already got a group that's going to go out there, and I have full confidence that that group is going to grow. And sometimes I'm in this for maybe the wrong reasons. I'm in this job because I really like soccer and I really like to win games. End of the day, I really like this sport and I really like competing. But the older I've gotten and the longer I've done this, the more I appreciate the group of women I get to coach. The more I appreciate being in charge of a group of women that during the busiest time of their year says, yeah, Special Olympics, that sounds like something we should do. And it doesn't really matter the cause. We always have a group of people that are willing to stand up and help out. And that was just kind of what I wanted to share with this group, because the stuff on the field is fun. I encourage you to come out to a game. They compete really hard and they're just fun to watch. But beyond that, it's always nice when you have a team that you know that deserve to be cheered for. And I'm not saying everybody on the team is perfect. I'm not saying I agree with everything everybody on the team does. In fact, there's some things that I don't. But end of the day, when there's a group of people that need help, the group of people on my team tend to stand up, and there's somebody that's going to stand up and help that group of people. And I think that would resonate with the group of people I'm talking to right now. Are there any questions?
How has recruiting gone this year? I know we heard from Vermillion a couple of weeks ago, and how you have a number of people who stayed an extra year, and you have additional, you probably didn't get additional scholarships.
We did not. Recruiting has been interesting. And there's two sides to it. The NC, the phrase, the road to heck is paved with good intentions. The NCAA had some really good intentions out there when they gave all these kids the extra year. But it had some real consequences for the kids that were in high school that were looking to fill spots. It had some real consequences for some of the kids who were on the roster and they said, well, I came here because she was going to graduate, and now all of a sudden she's back. And that's great for me as a soccer coach. Not so great for the person that wants to replace her. So what we were able to do, and different programs handled it differently. I wasn't willing, we're one of those weird sports that tend to have kids commit really early. Kids commit to our school in their junior year. So when COVID hit and they all got the extra waiver, I already had 8 kids committed. And I wasn't going to go back to those kids and tell them, hey, you can't come to the University of South Dakota. So our roster right now is 36 people, and it's supposed to be at 30, which is a rather large roster anyway. We're slowly going to work it down, that this next year's recruiting class is going to be a smaller recruiting class, and like everything else, we hope it evens out. The other piece of that is, one of the things I've learned in my 4 years here is University of South Dakota is the kind of place that you have to visit to want to come here. And so when we were in the middle of this all and we were trying, and we weren't allowed to bring kids onto campus, recruiting got very difficult because we have a lot of, as long as we struggle when we bring people in February. If there's any people, my wife's birthday is in February. Valentine's Day is in February. My wife's a huge fan of February. She's the only person I really know that defends the month of February. The only good thing I have to say about February is it's short. I don't think we've ever brought a recruit on in February and gotten that kid to commit, actually. But having said that, the general reaction of kids when we bring them onto campus is, oh, this is South Dakota? Yeah, this is all right. We're going to come here. This is great. Look at this campus. Look at this cute little town. And you can imagine that the parents absolutely love it. They're like, I get to drop my daughter off here. This feels really safe. This feels like the kind of place I want to have my daughter. But when you can't bring them onto campus, it's just a stereotype of what South Dakota is. And so we literally, the first time that we were allowed to bring kids back onto campus, we brought 4 kids onto campus, and we got 3 out of 4 of them to commit within a week. We hadn't gotten a commitment in 7 to 8 months before that, and we brought our kids in, and it was just like batting practice out there. It was knock it out, knock it out, knock it out. And the one thing that I learned, not the one thing I learned many things out of COVID, but one of the things that was reaffirmed to me was the hardest part about recruiting to the University of South Dakota is getting people to visit the University of South Dakota. Did I answer a question in there somewhere? I had another hand up. Hi. Well, yeah, they play hard. I want to give you, since you were nice to me, I'm going to give you a little present right now. Okay, but since I've been here, 3-0 against Drake. I've got a better record against Drake than, and 2 of those times we were pretty severely outplayed, but we just managed to win the game. So next time you talk to your cousin, you can just let him know that Drake hasn't beaten the University of South Dakota since 2017. And that was somebody else's fault. Yes. Yeah. University of Denver is the gold standard in the Summit League. And full disclosure on this, I actually worked at the University of Denver for 6 years, and I have my master's degree from the University of Denver. But that doesn't make me want to kiss up to them. It makes me want to beat them more. That the University of Denver has been our NCAA representative. You know, the team that wins the conference tournament gets to go to the NCAA tournament. They've been our NCAA representative for 4 out of the last 6 years or something like that, and they've won the conference title, or at least a share of the conference title, I believe, every year that I've been here, in 18, in 19, and in 20. They've won the last 3 conference titles. And they're just a bit of a different animal when you look at the Summit League. It's nothing that we're not trying to get around, and it's nothing that we're not going to keep working towards. but it's hard not to argue that the University of Denver is the one that we're all trying to beat. As for the most improved, right now that's an easy conversation because it's Western Illinois. Western Illinois has traditionally been towards the bottom of the league. I believe they finished last in the conference last year. And right now they are sitting at 5-2 on a 5-game winning streak, having scored a bunch of goals. And as the coach for the University of South Dakota that plays them in the second game, I can tell you that I'm not altruistic and I'm not happy for them because I really, really want to get that win. But Western Illinois is having a fantastic bounce back year from several years of struggling. And their coach is a good man and is running both programs and goes about it the right way. So I am happy for him. Oh, lots of questions. You were first. We have, I can't give you the number off the top of my head because there's so many of them. One of the things that we have stressed is bringing in players from South Dakota when we can. And because of South Dakota's population, at times it doesn't put out as many soccer players as some other states, and we need to bring in players from other states. But one of our starting center midfielders is from Pierre, South Dakota. Our starting right midfielder is from Rapid City, South Dakota. We've got one of our first players off the bench is from Sioux Falls, South Dakota. We've got actually the starting center midfielder's little sister is also here. So there's another peer. We've got another outside midfielder. Apparently South Dakota develops a lot of outside midfielders. Is from South Dakota. And you want to know the truth, I think I'm missing somebody right now and I can't come up with it, but we have between 5 to 10, probably closer to the 5. Yeah, I mean, actually, you asked a really loaded question there. Well, no, just because I'm going to get really nerdy on you for a second. So there's these things called coaching licenses. We're a sport where you have coaching licenses, and the A license is the highest license. And when I got my A coaching license, you have to actually write a paper for this A license. And I randomly drew, I promise I didn't cheat or anything, I randomly drew the effects of altitude on performance. And I'm from Colorado. I was working for the University of Denver at the time. I was really smug. I said, this is going to be easy. I'm just going to be able to skate through this. And I started doing research. And what I learned is that aerobically, being a mile high above sea level shouldn't affect you in a huge way. That altitude affects you, but you got it. Like we played the University of Wyoming a couple weeks ago, and they're not 5,000 feet above sea level, they're 7,000 feet above sea level. And once you get to 7,000 feet, you have a pretty significant advantage. But what the research and what the science said is when you go to play at altitude, it tends to be dry, so your mouth starts to get dry, and you start to believe that you can't do things, and a lot of it's in your head. I'm going to tell you, as somebody who grew up in Colorado and was gone for a lot of runs in Colorado, I'm not sure that I believe that still. But that's what I tell my team every time I go out there, because the better I can convince them of that, the better off we are. I had another question here.
Why do you think it is difficult to get students that are effective athletes to come up here?
I think it depends where you're talking about. I think the word Dakota has negative connotations when you're looking at a student athlete base that wants to go someplace cool. And I'll tell you a story. So I was at Cal State Fullerton. I was 5 miles from Disneyland. I was 25 minutes from the beach. And I had this young woman who I wanted to come to Cal State Fullerton badly. I was on her early. I had identified her. I had done my job. She was playing for a smaller club that nobody else was going to know about her. I got her on campus. And eventually she just told me, I always pictured myself going someplace either with mountains or a beach. We were 25 minutes from the beach, and in California, that's a long way from the beach. And it wasn't anything about the school. It wasn't anything about the facilities. It wasn't anything about the soccer program. She just wanted to go someplace that fit her image of what was going to be a cool place to go to school. And in a world where a young woman is going to tell me that, hey, I want to be closer to the beach than 25 minutes, that's too far away. I want to be closer to the mountains. By the way, the mountains were 30 minutes the other way. In today's world, in today's society, sometimes getting these people to come onto campus is hard. I mean, one of the interesting things I find is there's kids from Sioux Falls that have never been on our campus. They've driven by it at 80 miles an hour their whole life. And my job is to tell them to, hey, why don't you stop and take a 10-minute drive through town? And once they take a 10-minute drive through town, we have a very high success rate. It took me a while to figure out the word to describe Vermillion. I came in, and at first I was, hey, it's better than you think it's going to be, and that wasn't enough. That wasn't giving Vermillion near enough credit. And it's not a beautiful place. The word I was looking for in the end was charming. Vermillion has a lot of charm. And it took me about 3 weeks to come up with that word. It wasn't a long time, I promise. And I've been using the word charming ever since. And I really think it describes Vermillion, that you can go to the downtown and you can walk down Main Street and you can buy an actual ice cream cone from the ice cream stand. And one of our recruits, actually, one of the recruits that committed here, she described it best. She says, I think going to school here is going to be like going to school in a Hallmark movie. And I said, if that's what gets you to say yes, well then yes it is.
I'm going to tell you a little anecdotal story that you can use sometimes. My mother-in-law came out here in 1931 on the train from Rochester, New York, to Mass. Her parents thought she was going out to live with the
That maybe answered your question better than I could have answered it. I mean, it's just, there's certain connotations, and I say with the word Dakota because, I talk to kids and I have to explain to kids all the time how much less snow we get than the University of North Dakota and North Dakota State. They just think of this as one big blob of a landmass, and I have to explain, we have the internet here. We got everything you need, I promise. I've coached both. I've been coaching. What? I once wrote a 20-page paper on that. And so I've coached men a long time ago, and then I've done a lot of boys club soccer along the way as well. So I've got some experiences in both, and I'm not necessarily going to give you my answer, but there was a famous soccer coach. His name was Tony DiCicco. He passed away a couple of years ago. He won a World Cup with our U.S. women's national team. He actually has the highest win percentage of any U.S. women's national team coach. And when you look at the success our national team has had, that's pretty impressive. And he wrote a book, and the book was called Catch Them Being Good. And his premise was that if you brought a women's team in and had them watch video of themselves playing, and they would come out of there with a list of the 8 things that they had done wrong that they need to improve on, and why the team wasn't successful individually, what they need to do to get better. And if you brought a men's team in there, they'd come out with a list of 8 things too, but it would be a list of the 8 things that all their teammates had done wrong that weren't going to allow them to be successful. And that's an oversimplification, but I think there's some truth in it. And I know we have a lot of professors in here, and I'm sure we're seeing the same thing in the classroom. And I think there's some of the difference is that you have to, and oftentimes, impose your will upon a men's team, and you have to find a way to work with a women's team to get to the result that you need to. And as I said, I don't want to give a trite answer to this, because there's times that I need to just impose my will on the women's team, and we're going to do it my way. Why? Because I said so. And I think especially in 2021, a coach that coaches a men's team and doesn't have a relationship with those players and is always trying to impose his or her will on them isn't going to be successful. But if we just want to talk in broad terms, I think that's approximately where we're at. Fair enough? We have questions. Iowa State's interesting right now. I mean, and first of all, I'll pass that along to Kelly. I got her that job, by the way. That Kelly Willer was one of our athletes, and to me, Kelly Willer epitomizes what you want out of a student athlete. She wanted to go into special education, so well, since athletics was running it, I got her on the committee, and they put her in charge of awards for the whole thing. And I claim she had the second or third biggest job for the whole thing. And she just scurried around like a little mouse for 2 days straight. But I don't know that I have ever been as proud of a player as I was of Kelly Willer that weekend. She did an adult's job as a 21-year-old. Iowa State's going to be good. Iowa State, they have a coach, and this is his second year. And my gosh, if the year was weird for me last year, how weird was it to be his first year in the program was in the middle of COVID. So they're a young team and a mature team all at the same time. That he has a bunch of juniors and seniors that were left from the previous coach. And then he brought in actually a lot of foreign players into the team, which on the women's side, the foreign players tend to have some soccer culture that we don't, but sometimes struggle athletically because say what you want about the United States women's soccer players. They're athletic and they compete hard. They tend to be more athletic than the players from the other parts of the world, and they tend to know how to compete, know how to play to win. And I think they're going to come out and they're going to play a big, expansive soccer game. I think we do some things that they haven't seen before. And I literally, you can ask me the same question in 4 hours and I might give you a different answer, because I had started watching my Iowa State video. That's why I was a couple minutes late to lunch. And when I'm through speaking here, I'm going to go and watch Iowa State. I'm actually going to watch Iowa State Drake. And I'm going to go home and watch Iowa State Drake until it's time for practice at 4 p.m. We good?
I think so.
Thank you for your time, everybody.